Hello, everyone. My name is Claire Coleman, and I work for the Fargo Public Library Outreach Department. We are happy to begin presenting a series of online programs for your education and entertainment. Our first presentation is a virtual tour of New York City. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this travel adventure right from the comfort of your own home. Also known as the Big Apple, New York City is the largest city in the United States, with 8.4 million people as of 2018. It is a port city located where the Hudson River meets the Atlantic Ocean. New York is comprised of 5 boroughs, a borough being a part of the city in a different county. They all used to be separate cities, but consolidated in the late 19th century into the New York City we know and love today. The 5 boroughs are Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Queens, with Manhattan being the most densely populated and home to most of the iconic New York sites that we would recognize. New York City is considered to be the financial, media, and cultural center of the world. Waterways separate most of the boroughs from each other. Manhattan and Staten Island are their own islands, and Queens and Brooklyn are located on Long Island. So to facilitate travel between the boroughs, an extensive system of more than 2,000 bridges and tunnels has been built. This includes a couple of the most famous bridges in the world, Brooklyn Bridge and the Williamsburg Bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge was opened to the public in 1883 and was the first permanent fixed crossing of the East River. Before that, ferries were the only way across. It has been refurbished several times in the past century and a half, but it is still one of the most used crossings between Manhattan and Brooklyn. The Williamsburg Bridge officially opened in 1903 and was only the second bridge built across the East River. This bridge is over a mile long. At the times that each of these bridges were built, they broke world records for the longest suspension bridge ever built. There are several other smaller islands in the mouth of the Hudson River that are a part of New York City. The most famous of these is Ellis Island. It was not used for anything in particular until an immigration station was built there in 1892. Then Ellis Island became the place where more immigrants to America were processed than anywhere else. Over 12 million immigrants passed through Ellis Island between 1892 and 1954 when it closed. It is estimated that around 40% of all Americans can trace at least one ancestor that came through Ellis Island. 4 of my great-grandparents came through Ellis Island, and I'm sure many of you know of parents and grandparents who did so as well. As immigrants sailed into the bay on their way to Ellis Island, they were greeted by the sight of Lady Liberty welcoming them to America. Officially titled Liberty Enlightening the World, the Statue of Liberty is a 151-foot-tall copper statue that was gifted to the United States by France in the 19th century. The statue is located on Liberty Island. Fun fact, the metal framework that is the structure of the statue was built by Gustav Eiffel, the same man who built the Eiffel Tower. Because of the Ellis Island immigration station, New York City and New Jersey were the first places that immigrants had access to in America. Many of them stayed in New York City, making it the most diverse city in the entire world. Around 800 individual languages are spoken. Also, New York City is the home of the United Nations headquarters and functions as a center of international diplomacy. As immigrants settled in the city, they tended to group together with other people from their home countries, which formed several neighborhoods in New York where old country languages and traditions are still openly celebrated. Two of the most famous of these neighborhoods are Little Italy and Chinatown. Like any city, there are a few main thoroughfares that stand out as the most popular and most trafficked in New York City. One is Fifth Avenue, a street that is known for its upscale shopping district. It is considered to be one of the most expensive and elegant streets in the world. Another famous road is Wall Street, home of the financial district and the New York Stock Exchange. An iconic site on Wall Street is the Charging Bull statue, installed as a symbol of a robust and aggressive economy. And maybe the most famous street of all, Broadway is the oldest north-south main road in New York City. Nicknamed the Great White Way, Broadway is home to the professional theater district, which is named after it. Speaking of theater, New York City is one of the entertainment capitals of the world. Nowhere is this more obvious than Times Square. Times Square is a town square located at the intersection of Broadway and 7th Avenue. It is named for the New York Times newspaper because they built their headquarters there in the early 20th century. Times Square is the heart of the Broadway Theater District and hosts the New Year's Eve ball drop every year. Radio City Music Hall is another center of entertainment. It is the largest indoor theater in the world, hosting many performers throughout the year and serving as the home of the Rockettes, who perform their Radio City Christmas Spectacular every holiday season. Another large venue is Madison Square Garden. It is a center for sports, including being the home of the New York Rangers hockey team and the New York Knicks basketball team. It also hosts more high-profile concerts than any other venue in the world, other than the O2 in London. In the past, it has been performed in by artists such as John Lennon, Elton John, Elvis Presley, Kiss, Led Zeppelin, Billy Joel, Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, and U2, with many of these artists playing there over 30 times. With New York City being an important cultural center, there are naturally many of the world's highest quality museums located here. One of the more famous museums, partly thanks to the Night at the Museum film franchise based around it, is the American Museum of Natural History. It is located on Museum Mile, the eastern edge of Central Park, where there's a high concentration of museums. The American Museum of Natural History is actually 26 interconnected buildings rather than one large building, and is over 2 million square feet. Over 34 million specimens are housed there, including human, cultural, and biological artifacts, as well as animal specimens and examples of minerals and meteorites from all over the world. The museum is continually searching to expand their collection and sponsors around 120 field expeditions every year. Another famous museum in New York City is the Metropolitan Museum of Arts, the largest art museum in the United States. It is also located along Museum Mile and contains over 2 million works from all ages and all over the world. The Metropolitan Museum of Arts also hosts the Met Gala as an annual fundraiser for its Costume Institute. Now, when thinking of New York City, many people immediately think of the Manhattan skyline. The skyline is recognizable in part to its many skyscrapers. Some of the tallest buildings in the world are located in New York City, including the Chrysler Building. Standing at 1,046 feet or 77 stories tall, this building was the tallest building in the world for 1 year from 1930 to 1931. However, it was then surpassed by perhaps the most famous skyscraper in the world, the Empire State Building. At 1,454 feet, or 102 stories tall, the Empire State Building held the record for the world's tallest building for nearly 40 years, not losing the title until the completion of the World Trade Center in 1970. Not exactly a skyscraper, the Flatiron Building is not famous for its height, but for its unique shape. The footprint of the Flatiron Building is triangular to fill the space between where Broadway forks off from Fifth Avenue. It's got its name from the shape looking like a clothing iron. Of course, a list of famous New York City buildings would not be complete without the World Trade Center, and more specifically, the Twin Towers. The World Trade Center was actually a complex of 7 buildings, but the 2 skyscrapers were the main focus of it. One World Trade Center, the North Tower, was the tallest building in the world, coming in at 1,368 feet at the roof and 1,730 feet with its telecommunications antenna. It held the record from 1970 to 1973, when the Sears Tower succeeded it. The South Tower, or 2 World Trade Center, was just shy of its twin, at 1,362 feet. Both buildings had 110 stories. All buildings in the complex put together offered a whopping 13,400,000 square feet of office space for hundreds of companies. It was so large it even had its own zip code. This architectural marvel became an iconic part of the New York City skyline and was as recognizable as the Empire State Building. Unfortunately, the World Trade Center also became the center of New York's greatest tragedy. On the morning of September 11, 2001, 4 passenger jets were hijacked by terrorists, 2 of which were flown like guided missiles into the Twin Towers. The North Tower was hit at 8:46 a.m. Some people evacuated the South Tower then, but at the time, most people assumed the crash to be an accident. When the second plane hit the South Tower at 9:03 a.m., it became obvious that America was under attack. Evacuations were underway, but everyone above the impact zone on each tower was trapped by the burning jet fuel. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed, followed by the North Tower at 10:38 a.m. 2,763 people died at the World Trade Center, including 343 firefighters and paramedics, and 60 New York City and Port Authority police officers, making this the deadliest terrorist attack in history. It's estimated that nearly 10,000 more were injured. Between tearing down the surrounding buildings that were damaged beyond repair and removing the debris, cleanup at Ground Zero took 8 months and cost $750 million. But slowly, the city began to heal. On the first anniversary, a memorial called Tribute in Light was installed, 2 columns of light going straight into the sky from the site of the destroyed towers. This became an annual tribute until the permanent memorial was completed in 2011 for the 10th anniversary. The footprints of the 2 towers have been transformed into reflection pools that become waterfalls pouring into the center. The edges are lined by bronze panels engraved with the names of each and every one of the victims that died in the 9/11 attacks, including those who perished at the Pentagon or in the plane crash in Pennsylvania. In 2014, a museum and memorial building opened to the public, and construction was completed on a new One World Trade Center skyscraper, which is now the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. As the city heals, the World Trade Center complex is slowly being rebuilt. From the skyline and all the pictures, one might think New York City is made of nothing but concrete, asphalt, and steel. However, New York City has quite a vast park system. The most recognizable park in Manhattan is Central Park. Central Park has been open for over 150 years, undergoing many changes during that time. Today, the 843-acre park is extremely popular and has 38 million visitors per year who enjoy walking and biking trails, several lakes, a zoo, 2 ice skating rinks, a mall, restaurants, an outdoor theater that hosts Shakespeare in the Park, many sports facilities, and even horse-drawn carriages. New York City is full of people, art, structures, knowledge, and culture unlike anywhere else in the world. If you have ever been fortunate enough to visit, you will know just what I'm talking about when I say that the city that never sleeps can stir one's imagination and ambition better than any other city. I hope you have enjoyed our tour of New York City. Thank you for joining me and the Fargo Public Library on this adventure, and I hope you tune in to our future online programming.